how you had, for example, funding problem with a project, and you have gone through a process and it was okay or not okay. So your personal experience I would like to hear. You? You understand what I mean?
No, I'm sorry. I'm really sorry. Can you repeat that?
Maybe.
She knows the answer. She knows the answer.
Please, can you say the question again?
But you know the answer.
Yes.
Yeah.
Good answer.
So there are different difficulties. I would like to hear your personal, professional experience about a difficulty that you went through and you finish it. The problem disappeared.
Solved it.
You solved it, yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe it can be helpful for the others when you feel that it is impossible to go to finish it.
For the question of the funding, one of the
Please, shut up.
Bravo.
Listen to him, please.
one for the question of the fundings in the formal education. No, funding. In the normal formal education, we have Portugal have help from the government, but it's important to make partnerships with private institutions, private enterprises, the locality authorities, etc., etc. And we have someone, and we can organize several activities out of the school. And when we talk in the small group, the European projects are always a good idea for organize different activities. For example, 5 years ago, with the European project, we organized a lot of workshops. We'll have some money and we can pay the trainers for workshops for the parents of the students from my school. And this is always a good way to make different activities, the European program.
Did I understand that you asked help from the parents?
It was a project, Windy project named European Parent School. And during the 2 years, we organized some workshops for the parents. But we needed to pay to the the trainers. And with money from the project, we can pay this and we can buy objects for the workshops.
Yeah, I see. Any other? You
Yes.
are working in this?
Yes, please.
Yeah, please.
We know a lot about raising money. And it's
Do you know?
yeah. And I'll
Please
tell you
tell us how to do.
and I will tell you how to do it. Our network was started in 1997 by private persons. After maybe half a year, a politician told those guys who started this network that they should seek the government for money so they could employ consultants. It started small, but today we are big. Since maybe 98, every 4th year we are seeking the government for money. And one of my colleagues, we have I started in 2000 until now, we have had many meetings with the parliament politicians. And we have a red and a blue bloc in the parliament, and they support us both at the time it's a red bloc who's ruling. 2 years ago it was the blue bloc. But when they give us money, it seems to me that it helps themselves because it's a good cause to support. So we have former ministers who are supporting us. We have a meeting with them, tell them what we're doing and how we're doing. And all the time it had never been necessary for us to set figures how many people we want to reach, because there have always been progress from the start to now. And also 3 years ago, 4 years ago, maybe, time is running, the region, one of the regions where we are, they support us with some money so we can set more focus on adults who could improve their skills by participating in courses. But as I can see, if we want government money, we have to make lobby work with the politicians, and maybe sometimes 1 or 2 times a year give them a good meal and
Good drink.
remember their birthday and things like that. So it helps in them. But we are special, but it helps too.
What kind of organization you are?
What?
What kind of organization you are in?
My organization.
Yeah.
It's a,
What you are speaking about? What organization was invited?
It's a network of companies, organizations, regions, and things like that. Schools.
Mhm.
I'll tell you much more about it tomorrow. But that's where we are. We have companies and others can be member, but it doesn't cost anything. We have about 500 members, and more than 2,500 gets our newsletter free or 4 or 5 times a year. So, and we're doing lots of things, different companies and things.
Okay.
So, yeah.
I am jealous.
Are you?
Yeah.
We
We
go
usually
all
try to
together.
invite politicians and they say maybe I will come and they never come to our
Can
meeting.
I ask?
Maybe you don't organize a good dinner.
Yeah, maybe he's a better cooker.
Maybe not each year, but almost each year we are arranging a big conference. And if we invite a minister, if they on any way can participate, they do it. So,
John,
Can I ask you a question
Yeah.
on that? Sometimes, and I'd be interested in your answer, but sometimes when you are, in a way, trying to influence by selling a project, a product, a course, whatever it is, you actually have to water down your aims. So you put a course on, which could be quite radical, but because of the funders, you have to change your aims. Do you find you've had to do that in
No.
order to keep going and to
No.
be so successful?
No.
That's not been your
Because
experience.
we are not selling courses, we are arranging courses together with the schools. We have never sold a single course. We are telling about how to do, and we are helping the companies to match them with the right school. And we are company started. So we are on the company side when we're talking education. Some schools want to have maybe 16 students in a team, and we know that the money reaches if you have 8. So
Right.
yeah, so we don't have this problem. Some you asking about. It has never been necessary because we are independent.
Mariam, you wanted to
My
say something?
colleagues are reminding me about 2 things, but if somebody else wants to. Well,
Yeah.
shall I tell this?
Okay, later you try again. Okay.
No, I'll tell you the story. John's reminding me that sometimes you have to be quite ruthless with funders. And sometimes it's unintentional that you're ruthless. And John and I made an application for some money when we had a firm called, a company called the AddEd Knowledge Company. And we made an application to the Joseph Rowntree Foundation. And John was working on the finished bid on my computer, and he sent it to Joseph Rowntree Foundation. And about 3 weeks later, a letter came to my computer from John, telling us that we hadn't got the funding and the reasons why. And the reasons were that they were giving funding to another organisation who were not independent, who had a very right-wing slant, who had I had various objections to. So I replied, "Dear John, this is very short-sighted of funders. This is wrong with the people that they are funding. They have a political bias which is unacceptable in the area that they're going to work in because it's an area of ethnic minorities, etc., etc." 3 weeks after that, John said to me, "Isn't it funny that we never heard from Joseph Rowntree whether they were getting that money or not?" And I said, "Oh, we did." And when I looked back at the email I thought was from John and blasted all this information about how their funding was going to inappropriate providers. It wasn't from John. It was from somebody called John at Joseph Rowntree's telling me that we didn't get the funding. So I had to write to them and explain that I'd made a terrible mistake, but that it was good that he found out my opinion anyway, and we ended up quite friends, but, you know, we never got funding from them. So it's not a good way to influence people, really. Sorry.
Okay, on the theme, I'd like to almost an advert really. Ronnie's here from a folk high school in Norway, and I spent most of my career in a folk high school, a trade union folk high school, I suppose, in England. And it's just one, when I worked as a kind of outreach worker for a thing called the Workers' Education Association, WEA, which is quite big in Western Europe. I worked with deprived, working class, poor communities, yeah. Through schools I worked with parent groups, etc. And then I got the opportunity to work in a residential college. And it's a residential element that I'm, in a sense, trying to sell to you as a solution to some of the problems I had working with working class groups in their communities, on their estates, etc. Because residential education, boarding education, sometimes we call it, allows people, particularly women actually, working class women, you know, just on short bursts, yeah, perhaps, I'll call it just 2-year courses, but even on weekends, to actually get out of your situation to another space, you know, have someone cooking your food, right? Perhaps someone looking after your children for that period. But more importantly, in the bar in the evening, you have to have the social life of the education as well. I mean, I'm embarrassed saying this, but I think we actually, it was miraculous what could happen to students from Friday night to Sunday afternoon. Yeah? But it was because she had that kind of special world that you can create in terms of intensive learning and adult education. And before I worked in a residential college and a folk high school, I thought it was just like going to a hotel, and it's a bit of a luxury, a bit of a free thing, etc. But I think, the potential of that kind of, particularly I'm thinking about working class students and students who, it's in a sense taking life out of education. We said life's very much part of it. Well, for a weekend, you can actually get rid of a lot of the life bits and just do the education. It's just that, think about that. It's very expensive, of course, etc., etc. But Mary and I have been trustee advisors to a big youth project in Hull for many years. And there they use it as part of their education training programs. And they plan it. They start on the Friday and they plan with the students and they all go away, in the bus to a residential weekend. And we've evaluated that work as well. And it really is quite magical what can happen. Take you out of your everyday real problems and issues and do that. So that's just a little advert for folk high schools and residential education, but it's not simply a luxury. It works. It'd be worth fighting to try and get that kind of residential type element in the blended learning, the package, in some way, because it does work.
It's something totally different. I was looking at a
No problem. Put the microphone to you. Okay.
About the motivation and the constant positive feedback. I think that's a very important task for the teacher. And it can be the same, two sides of the same thing. There's always something positive to say about the student and the student's work, if you really look. If you really look into what they are doing, there's always something positive to say. But it's an art to be able to see it. So it's a constant learning process for you as a teacher. One little episode I had with one of my students. She had a task and she said, I'm not able to do this. I can't get anything right. Okay, show me what you're doing. And she showed me. It was a practical task and she was doing it. And I had no comment of improvement on that task. So I simply said, perfect. And her tears just burst. Never in her whole life she had heard the word perfect in a schooling setting. And it's needless to say that she was on my side the rest of the teaching. I could do almost anything and she will still be motivated. So to find that spot in each student is more than important, it's vital. But we have to train us to find those spots. And that's not easy, but it's possible.
Yeah.
From a motivational point of view, I'm a big believer in partnership funding. Because I see if I'm invited to a dinner and participate just as an eating guest, I come to a set table and a set menu, I eat, I enjoy the meal, I thanks for the meal and leave. However, if I'm a partnership in the meal, partnership in setting the table, setting up the menu, my part will be much greater in the whole meal and the whole experience. What we tend to do in Norway when seeking fundings for, say, vocational training programs, we can visit the company leaders and ask if we can view the gap analysis they have, which shows the need for competence and skill they need in near future or on a longer term, and ask if they want to be a partner in investing money into the employees in the company. Often they say yes. And in a practical view, what they do then is saying to the workers that, okay, we are ready to fund some of the training you are going through now in the future. However, we need you to sign up a contract with us, providing you from leaving us the next 3 years. If you choose to leave us before 3 years are gone, you have to pay some of this fee back to the company. It helps both parts. First and foremost, I, as a worker, are guaranteed work in the company for the next 3 years. My place is safe. And for the company, they have now started an education program that leads into the future. So I'm a big believer in partnership funding.
Any others? Are you tired? Yes. Usually, don't you want to speak about this meeting, for example? How you put together this 1 week program?
First, I would like to say
Reflect.
some
Okay.
notes. Yeah, the key word is partnership, I think. Because it speaks about founding, for example. If I go to a factory or an organization and I said, okay, this is my leaflet, I would like to do this, give me money. First question is why? Who you are? Why you ask? Okay, I understand you need money. I also understand you make good things. And I know a man who did extreme sports. Now he make a kayak tour around Europe. It's a little bit 3 years long. And I make an interview with him, how you collect the money. And he said, he sent his CV, the plan, etc., what he need to 300-400 organization, people, banks, etc. And they have nearly 10 answers. So this doesn't work. Because then the organization asks for me money. They don't need my brain, don't need my activity, just my money. She's looking my pocket. From this reason I said partnership is the solution. If I would like to do something, and I try to collect partners who can give me some resources, maybe money. But sometimes to get the product is much more easy, like collect the money. If I say for a computer, sir, okay, I need a computer, it's much easier to receive it from him, just like his money. So I think if we plan for a long term in our activity, we had to have some partners who are real partners, not just the money asked from them. What do you think about my activity? Is good for you to support me? Why is good for you? What can I do for you? Okay, I know what can you do for me, give you money. But why is good for them? So I think in Hungary, I'm sure, because the state support is quite nothing for the civil society now. Because we had a special state-funded foundation they give money each year for the civil society, for association, foundation, etc. But their money is less than the Norwegian Civil Fund. If I compare the target group and the money from the Norwegian Civil Fund and the National Hungarian Civil Fund, the target group and the money, then the Norwegian Civil Fund is much more effective, like the Hungarian state. Okay, we can say it's horrible, etc., etc., but this is the situation. We have to live with this. If we would like to do something, we cannot wait for a better time when the state will accept. The civil society take from the state some responsibility for adult people, for poor people, for homeless people, etc. And they give the money for this. Not all money, but more than now. So we have to find resources. And I think it's maybe similar in more of the European countries. So I think we have just one way to build partnership together, because if we are, for example, in the distance learning activity, if we are 3 or 5 or 6 organizations sitting here and we work together, then we can apply for the European Union, because it's a European project. If I am alone and didn't build partnership, okay, I can ask some money for the European Union, but I know the results now. So I think this is the key word. To find resources, to have some good practice, etc., etc. This is the most important aspect. Are we able to build partnership or not? If yes, then we have a future. Then we will survive. Then we will sustainable activities. We will have sustainable activities. We will have some future. If not, then we can do anything alone. It's a good I remember a book title. The book is wrote an American sociologist about the social capital. And the title was Bowling Alone. So we have to decide, we would like to bowling alone or bowling together and play together. Yeah, this is the key question, I think. Thank you.
You are welcome.
I can expand on that just a little bit, because I think the principle of partnership working is absolutely fundamental, and particularly when working with high need groups, groups of people who have high needs and have maybe lots of barriers to learning. I've got some examples, and one of those is the course that Marion and John and I ran for the Gypsy and Traveller community in Norfolk. And it was really challenging to actually, first of all, persuade fairly strategic people within organisations like police, health, local authorities, educational establishments, about the benefits of the course. Why would the course, and how could the course benefit those organisations? Because I was applying to those organisations to collectively put some funding in. So some funding from health, some funding from police, some funding from local authority, district councils, some funding from housing organisations, that type of strategic partner. And it took a lot of work, but it did pay off, because in the end we were able to fund the programme. The challenge and the trick was trying to explain how the learning outcomes of the course would benefit those services. So for the police, for example, with the police, it was to say, if we deliver this course to the Gypsy Traveller community in Norfolk, then this may help reduce crime in those communities, or it may help those communities to become less victims of crime. So the language, and you have to talk their language to get those partners to understand and get on board. And we were able to, at another level, persuade them also that it would be good experience and learning if they could put someone on the course. So the makeup of students was, we had members of the Gypsy traveller communities from across the whole of Norfolk. We had a policeman, we had a health worker, we had a traveller education worker, and we had me, who took part as students in the course. And that also helped to bring in some funding because our organisations funded our places, and that sometimes can also help and make the difference, you know, between being able to run the course and not. So I think Joska's point is absolutely, you know, fundamental, and it's a way forward. But the challenge is having those discussions takes time and effort, and you have to speak the language of those organisations to get them to understand the benefits for them. Is that clear?
Yeah, absolutely.
Could I just one note? We were so, Chrissy was so successful, right? We had a policeman on the course. Right? Now that's a bit like in Hungary, you know, getting a joint police Roma course together, you know, the policeman on the course. The policeman was so convinced by the course, which is about gypsy culture and other things, and designing sites, that he actually went to live on a gypsy site himself, you know, with the gypsy community. So that was a bit of a conversion job. A policeman on a course for gypsies and travellers who ended up living with the gypsy community. I think that's quite a good outcome, really. You know,
Unexpected outcome.